Hi, everyone. Welcome to, someone's got an open mic and they're typing. So if that's you, go ahead. But otherwise, welcome to everyone to Office Hours Part 2, Saturday, where we were going to focus on Zoom OSC. In the past, we have usually just run this as a straight one, but we started this over since it's going to be there's going to be a series of these, and so we want to make sure that we recorded them separately. We've got Andy Carrluccio here. Hey, Andy, how's it going? And we're really excited. So what we're going to be doing is over the next 5 weeks, next 5 Saturdays, we're going to be covering basically how to get started with Zoom OSC, which I'm really excited about, obviously. So I'm excited that we have Andy here, that we get to learn it. I think that there is a unique opportunity right now to take Zoom to places that it's not ready to go on its own. Andy has been kind of cutting the brush out in front of us, working this stuff out, and hopefully we can follow up and kind of open up that lane a little bit more. So as a group, I'm really excited to have all of you here. Just again, if you're new to this, most questions, any new questions, go ahead and put them into Mukana. Andy's going to start the preview, start walking us through it probably for the first 45 minutes to an hour. But if there are questions that come up, we will start pushing them towards Andy. Andy, just let me know when you're done with kind of the overview. The questions are stacking up. So there'll be a lot of questions we're ready to throw to you, but I want to give you at least the first 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, just to kind of give us an overview to make sure we cover those out. Go ahead, Andy, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex. And so nice to see everybody here. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. I actually read every download form that comes in for Zoom OSC, and I get to see all the different use cases that you guys use it for. And it's so cool to see everything from education to production, just what you guys are working on. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity over the next, the next month, to train you up on Zoom OSC and also get your experience of it and figure out how we can make something together that is really powerful for decentralized production. So just again, by way of introducing the product, Zoom OSC is a interface, a bidirectional open sound control interface to Zoom. It allows you to tell Zoom that you want to do certain things, and it also allows you to get information from Zoom into some controller or something like that you want to use to help personalize it, customize it, make it react to what's happening in your meeting or your webinar. Today is very special for us because we are launching Zoom OSC version 4. This is a huge update. It is a complete rewrite of the software on both platforms. And the impetus for this was our second hour with Office Hours a couple months ago. For a long time, Zoom OSC had sort of been incubated in the academic theater space. And while we used it at Liminal for production purposes, when we came on Office Hours, the number of people who started using it in production workflows just exploded. It popped our bubble. And that was a really, really interesting moment for us to evaluate the workflows that we were using and to just participate with Office Hours and learn what was going to be helpful. So what we've done is we've gone back to the basics, and we've rewritten the application from the ground up, added a ton of new commands, a ton of new interfaces, all sorts of different things that you can do with it that we think are going to make it really flexible and adaptable to the kind of workflows that we do for decentralized production. So the other thing we're happy to say today is with the launch of Zoom OSC Pro, we're giving everybody who's participating in Office Hours a free copy for a month of the Pro version so that you can practice with it and learn all the different features and work with each other to explore the full possibilities of the software. To go claim that, I'm going to put in Mukana a link right now to a form that you can fill out. And when you fill out that form, it's basically going to ask you just some basic information as well as some things about your current production workflow that I'm going to check out just so I get a sense of, what are people really looking for over the next couple of weeks, and it'll just help me get some feedback. Once you do that, a couple minutes later, you'll receive an email from us that has the download link and your license activation key for Pro. And that should be everything you need to get started. This is early access to version 4. We haven't done a large public release of it yet. We're working on a couple of things on the documentation side, but we felt comfortable providing it to y'all because I'm going to be here with you and we'll be able to address your questions in person and kind of get you trained up. In terms of the goals over the next couple of weeks, what I really want to try to do here is make sure that everybody who completes this process walks away with a production pipeline for Zoom that they feel works really well for them. And I've split it up into 5 parts. So each weekend, I'm going to post a video And that video is going to describe sort of a challenge or a homework assignment, something to work on for the next week. So for the first week, what we're going to do is we're going to look at selecting a controller and then having that controller talk to Zoom. That's the most straightforward way to use Zoom OSC. You're going to build something out that can pin people, spotlight people, set their mics on and off, video on and off, that kind of stuff. And the goal is that you don't have to all use the same controller. You instead will just look at your current workflow and select something that works well for you. So, Victor will probably use something like QLab, right? Because that's something that, with a timeline, and that's kind of where you want to end up using. Some of us might use production switchers. Some of us might use media servers. Some of us might use MIDI control pads. Whatever you think is going to work best for your workflow, or mix and match, or something like that. But we're going to keep it simple for the first week, and just try to get you able to have your controller talk to Zoom OSC, and then by extension control the Zoom meeting there. Today's session is really going to be focused on just that general introduction, and I want to spend a lot of time with your questions just so that we have the right kind of theoretical foundation for it. But as I was telling Alex yesterday, if this next weekends are going to be a course, this is syllabus day, so we're going to take our time with it, and we're not going to get too technical, so don't feel a rush to go download and install it right now. We'll take our time and build that up and make sure that everybody's up to speed. Today, what we're going to do is walk through version 4. I'm going to show you the program itself. I'm going to show you some of the documentation for the program, and walk you through the user interface and just get you familiar with what it does. And then we'll dive right into your questions and try to get everybody up to speed. I think the first thing that would be good to do would be to refresh just what OSC is. Now, we did have a second hour recently on it that you could definitely watch if you want to get a deep dive into the protocol. But I think just because we're going to be referencing the syntax so much, it would probably make sense for us just to take a peek at that. So I'm going to switch on over to my desktop, and I'm just going to open up a notepad. And so OSC is sort of a spiritual network successor to MIDI. It's the same kind of program to program, or hardware to program, or hardware to hardware communication system, but it works over the network, works over IP. Typically, it's packaged as UDP. So an OSC message contains two components. It contains an address and a series of payloads. Now, there are other components to this as well, but usually those are abstracted away. For example, there's the standard OSC header. There's there's information about how to parse the payloads and stuff like that. But you virtually never really interact with that. You really just care about the address and the payloads. The address is sort of well, in good OSC implementations, the address will sort of be a tree syntax where, the first layer will specify, something, maybe the program you want to use. And then the next layer will specify something in its hierarchy of different commands that can be used. And then the next one will be a specific action that you might want to use. So just so you're aware, when I'm talking about, /Zoom/username or whatever like that, I'm talking about the address. And then when I'm talking about the payloads, I'm talking about the things that are sort of appended to that. So ZoomOSC will work by matching an address with something that's in its memory, and then it will take the payloads that you provided and call the action on that. So that's sort of the philosophy of the application. And if your next question is sort of, well, how do I know like what set of commands are what? That's what we call our API. So our OSC API has grown exponentially in version 4. We used to have this sort of syntax where you would do, /Zoom, and then you'd have one more command, which would be pinning or spotlighting or anything like that. And then the rest of the work would be done in the arguments. We really went back to the drawing board with this version, and we created it such that it really is a hierarchical tree designed to let you have all sorts of mix and match options that I'll show you in a few minutes. But I don't want to get too technical into that now, but just want to make sure that we're all sort of clear on what an OSC message is. And again, it's UDP, so it goes to an IP address and port. It's all network based. So if you're doing inter-computer program communication, you'll do the local software loopback 127001, and then the UDP port that the application is listening to. Again, it's bidirectional, so there's a place for you to also be able to send OSC. So you'll specify UDP ports for that as well. So that's just sort of the basics of what that is all about. Let's jump into the application now. So when you run ZoomOSC, you get greeted with this DOS window on windows, and then the exciting moment for me in a second when it finishes initializing and setting up the backend is that window finally goes away. This has been something that I've wanted for a long time to move away from, and now we have more of our Streamweaver style user interface. So this is brand new with version 4, and the same applies on the Mac. If I log into my my Mac over here, I can show you that it is similar but different. If I switch over here, it's this is actually, it's funny. The other day we were talking about on office hours cross-platform support for applications and why not to do it. And one of the reasons not to do it is because it's hard to support two things at once, especially if you're trying to make them as synchronized as possible. With Zoom's SDK, that's even more challenging because we have to maintain two entirely separate code bases because the SDKs are written in different languages. My sort of solution to that problem is to embrace the operating system that you're building it on and not spend a bunch of development time trying to make them aesthetically identical. So we've sort of embraced the Macness of the Mac version. All the same settings are available on each, but for example, we're sort of embracing Mac's upper toolbar up here and sort of the lingo and style. And I think it even inherits from whether you want to be in dark mode or light mode or what color preferences you have. So that was a way for us to get up and running quickly with it. So the two applications are not necessarily aesthetically matched, but function wise they are the same. Let's walk through a little bit of the interface over here on the left. So this is where you're going to see the output of ZoomOSC, and this is also where you're going to set your settings and activation. So this is something that you're going to basically set up once, and then you're going to kind of watch the console and see what's happening if you need to debug something or figure out if information's coming out. So the console is, there's logging levels, errors, warnings, all of that kind of stuff. You can filter there. We're not in a meeting right now, so there's not a bunch of log stuff coming out, but you could filter that there. Under the settings tab, this is where we're going to spend the most of our time. So I'm going to skip over it and come back. And then there's the upgrade. This is where you can set the activation for the program. So I can, you guys will have, it'll be ZoomOSC Essentials. And then when you enter your key and activate it, it will jump up to this. This is the key that most of you will use, so I'm not leaking anything there. The settings page, this is where we'll spend most of our time today. There's 3 categories of settings in ZoomOSC. There are, the OSC settings, the remote control settings, and the additional settings. The OSC settings are all of that IP stuff I was talking about earlier, setting the transmission IP, the transmission port, and the receiving port. This is just your standard UDP stuff. So if you want to talk to a program that's on LAN, you will find its private IP address. If you want to talk to a computer, another program within the same computer you're using, you can just leave the defaults 127.0.0.1, and then you just have to figure out what port you need to be using. The receiving port is when you have another application that's talking to ZoomOSC, what port can you find that on? And then the output rate, there are some programs that associate their video processing engine with their OSC processing engine. And so that means if you're doing something really intense at a given moment, the ability for that program to parse OSC is limited. And ZoomOSC is very chatty. It tells you a lot of things very quickly. So we found that by giving the users the option to delay or set the rate of their OSC output, you could kind of match it to programs like Isadora if it was really having a hard time processing a certain scene and it was working hard to hit its target frame rate. Setting this up to a higher value will give the packets out at a more parsable rate for it. It can get a little overwhelmed otherwise, but we generally would want this to be as fast as possible so you have the lowest latency information coming from Zoom as you can. But that's all that is right there. The remote control settings are a huge part of version 4, and it's something that we're going to spend a whole lot of time on later in the series because it can be a little confusing out of the gate. We're going to sort of warm our way up to it. But one of the things that's really powerful about the new version of ZoomOSC is that it can be remote controlled by other ZoomOSCs. And the way that works is through a chat back channel. So this is where you set the filters to be able to set all of your security for those sort of settings. So obviously you don't want somebody, just a rogue actor, jumping into a meeting and starting to remote control your talent. So if this is why you have both sides have to sort of agree to the classification of user who's able to do this. So I can choose to be remote controlled. I could choose to remote control everybody, targets, panelists, or allow remote control from host and co-host, a specific person, all of the users. And then the custom OSC control, this is borrowing something from our Streamweaver ecosystem, and it allows you to send a genuine OSC packet from one Zoom OSC to another. So if I'm over here in the Washington, D.C. area and I want to send something to Bill over in San Diego, if we both have this feature enabled, I can send an OSC packet using chat as sort of a back channel, and then it will actually emit as genuine OSC on the other side. This is great when you have a stage manager who wants to talk to a sound operator in QLab and they just want to send a go command through the chat and not have to deploy any additional infrastructure. That's a new pro feature that we're going to play with as we get later into the series. Finally, on the additional settings, ZoomOSC has this concept of subscriptions. This is when you want to get OSC messages from people out into your network. You can choose how you want to gatekeep that. If you don't want any OSC coming out of the program, you can cut it off entirely. If you only want to receive from targets, we can talk about what targets are, and you can set it to that level. If you want to receive OSC from everybody, you can just do that. If you want to receive it just from panelists or just from people with video on, which we would call the gallery, you can set it to there as well. The Zoom tracking ID mode, that's just to choose between how you want the gallery tracker to report, whether it's Zoom IDs or target IDs. And then finally, there's the ability here to browse for the participant target file. This is something we'll talk about a little later, but Zoom OSC has the ability to set presets of users and recall them. So if you needed to build out a patch where you knew who was going to be in the meeting, like if you're working in the theater, for example, you can build out that patch and then load it back in, and it will preset the program to work the way that it was working in the last rehearsal or something like that. Finally, save and load preferences. These create and load .zosc files. These are presets for the interface. So if you, the program will auto save every time you change something, but if you wanted to have multiple presets to be able to switch between for different productions that you're working on in a given day, you could create a series of .zosc files and load them up in succession. Or if you wanted to configure one and send it to talent and then have the talent just load the ZOSC file in, they don't have to mess with the interface at all. They'll just load all that in and it'll preset the program to the state that they can work in. So that's kind of fast, but that is sort of the new UI as we're looking to do it. I think that the next thing we should look at would be the actual API itself. Unless, and then Alex, you let me know, maybe, do we want to try to do the questions in spurts or allow people to respond to that?
Why don't we go ahead and grab a couple of the questions and we'll cut through them. I think we're stacking them up. Go ahead, Bill.
Sure. Ed Rubin from Oakland, California has our first one. How does it work with StreamDeck to control individual breakout rooms?
Great. So ZoomOSC does work with the StreamDeck. You need to have something loaded on your StreamDeck like BitFocus Companion that can allow buttons on the StreamDeck to send OSC messages. Once you've done that, you'll be able to use the StreamDeck to do all of the different things that are available in the API. Additionally, we are working with BitFocus to become an official partner, and we have a beta integration that's coming out soon. It's going to be, I'll announce it, but there's going to be one of the nightly releases is going to include Liminal as a manufacturer, and then in your BitFocus Companion, you'll select us. We've created a suite of variables in the companion that allow you to get information like a person's name on the key, and then or you could set it by somebody's gallery position, or you can get their video devices. All sorts of variables that we've spent a lot of time building out. So you might want to look at that integration when it becomes available. Insofar as breakout rooms, I will go down a little bit of a side avenue here and say that ZoomOSC is a Zoom SDK application, and we depend on Zoom to be able to provide features, and we also depend on those features being properly implemented in order for us to provide them. Unfortunately, in the last SDK update, Zoom has some serious bugs with breakout rooms, so we've decided not to support those features in our next update because we don't want you to have any instability. So right now we're holding off breakout rooms and we're holding off video filters. Those are things that we have done our part to make available, but the back end is not there. So we've sort of put a little lock on them, and then we're working with Zoom every day to try to see when they're going to be able to resolve those. Once that's done, you'll be able to open breakout rooms, close breakout rooms, assign people to breakout rooms, recall people from breakout rooms. And so we're close. We've done our side of it. We're just waiting for Zoom to update their part.
As far as I'm concerned, you can keep from using the filters forever. All right.
Well, I'll say that one thing that we're thinking about with filters is breaking it open to allow the import of custom filters from device. And then if that happens with the remote control system, we'll be able to set lower thirds on the talent's end into the Zoom meeting without having to go through an external titler. So that's why we want it.
Next question.
Comes from Frank Haney of Ottawa. I have a previous version of Zoom OSC installed. Is it best practices to remove it before installing 4.0?
Depends on the operating system. On Mac, I would go ahead and just throw it out of the applications folder. On Windows, it was previously a portable utility, so there is no harm in having it there. It was completely self-contained. 4.0 actually is an installation, so that'll go into your program files, and that's where it will live. So on Mac, yeah, go ahead and toss the older version, and go ahead and run the DMG to get the new one in there.
Go ahead. Next question. I'm having some issues with my video, so I may drop out for a second. Just keep going through the questions while we go. Next
Will do. Jesse Mills of San Francisco Bay Area says, running on 2 computers with second display pins, I would like to spotlight 2 or more people without breaking those pins. Can I run an instance of Zoom OSC on one of those machines, or do I need to start up another machine? I know that a third machine doing spotlights will not break the pins.
Yeah, so you can the ZoomOSC client is going to behave very similarly to the vanilla Zoom client. And on Mac, you can spin up multiple instances on the same box even. So if you wanted to have one machine with just a bunch of displays and multiple copies of ZoomOSC running and tile them out that way, that would be fine. You could, but also I can understand why you might want to split off the processing power among a couple different machines and then just make sure that you're doing your networking properly to get the key to talk to the right display. When it comes to breaking pins and breaking spotlights and things like that, the things to know there is that it is partially user role dependent. So know if you're a co-host, you might get different behavior than if you're a participant regarding whose pin beats whose spot. As well as how the gallery view is arranged. So that's something to keep an eye on when you build out that system. But yeah, I think when you're doing second display pins, the spotlight is now going to the primary display. So if the second display is available, you should be in good shape.
Some gamers will probably come in and want you to do pin power so you can override somebody else's. I did see that Tucker earlier had a hand up. Tucker, did you have a question, or have we gone past that, and should we just keep going?
It was with regards to the breakout rooms. I just wanted to get clarification there. That is like the breakout room functions are not there, but if I have a Zoom OSC instance in a breakout room, can I still manage pins?
You should be able to, yeah.
Cool.
We just can't, yeah, the movement and control of the API functions for breakout rooms are pending, but the program should function in a breakout room insofar as that breakout room allows those controls, if that makes sense.
10-4, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Frank Haney's question, hoping that Alex gets back soon. He says, if a malicious participant knows about Zoom OSC commands, could they disrupt a session? For example, turn off all video.
So that's why we added that security layer inside of the remote control settings. This is designed to be able to prevent somebody from just jumping into a meeting and doing that. Now, that being said, there might be cases. It's a double-edged sword. You don't want Frank's use case here where somebody just pops in and starts sending rogue OSC packets or turning on people's video. At the same time, if you're working on an escape room or something like that, you might want the audience to be able to have control of a sort of headless machine that's not being operated by somebody. And that's why we give you the option to set it to all, so that if you're in that situation, then anybody can do it if they know the syntax. If you have an operator who needs to pop in, but normally we default it to kind of locking those settings down. So you open them up as you are ready to do so.
Fair enough. Dave Chalmers, I'm sorry, of Glasgow, Scotland. I'm interested to understand how you'd connect to a virtual Zoom OSC instance, either in the cloud or on premises, from an OSC server app on a local machine. Is it just via a layer 3 IP routing?
Well, we actually have a couple folks on the panel who do some stuff with cloud, and I think there have been a couple of cloud tests with Zoom OSC. To the specific question, though, about how do I get my OSC from the ground to the cloud, that is where I use our Streamweaver application, which turns OSC into SRT, beams it up, and then converts it back into OSC in the cloud. You could use a VPN, you could use IP routing. I have concerns about protocols like OSC and DMX going over UDP, because if there's a dropped packet, you missed your control, you missed your trigger, you missed a frame of DMX. That's not great. So when you use SRT, you ensure the delivery of those packets, and that's why we built Streamweaver.
Okay, fair enough. Tucker has his hand up again. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, typically we would put the whatever the controlling application is that's generating the OSC command or the ArtNet command or whatever that happens to be in our AWS instance in order to ensure that we get good transport.
Okay, just for a second, I want to make sure that everybody here is up to speed. I mean, we had, I know Alex was going to talk to you more about the kind of the general structure of things before we got into this deep dive with questions. Does everybody on the panel kind of have a general good overview of OSC? How many people might be absolute beginners who were already gone way beyond where you need to be? So we have a couple of 2 or 3 or 4 people. So I just don't want to get you too far off of the idea of your presentation to make sure that we don't get too far away from the standard stuff. So do you want to dive in a little bit more about some of the overview before Alex gets back?
Yeah, that's great, because that's the next thing we're going to do is just hop into the meeting and start controlling things. So I think that sort of practical example will help us. I'm going to make an attempt here to actually log into this webinar. The reason that we're going to use meetings in the future is that this is it requires that you pre-register the account, and it can be a little finicky. So I'm going to take a shot at this, and then Bill, you might see ZoomOSC show up as an attendee, and then if you're able to promote that to a panelist, that would be great. Let's see if I can get in here.
Join too late, Mickey won't let you.
Let's see, where's even my participants window at this point?
Bill, I can let him in when he pops up.
Thank you. I appreciate it, TJ. I've got so many windows open because this panel is so big. I had to put it on my big screen. So if I'm looking up, I'm not praying, everyone. I'm desperately trying to see raised hands in a panel this large.
Oh, I thought you were worshiping us. So darn.
Yeah, well, that's it. You are all my deities.
You're doing a great job, Bill. You, as always.
All right.
Yes, you are.
Well, I realized that we might have, I might have skipped over something that I thought people might assume, but ZoomOSC is a Zoom instance. It runs like the vanilla Zoom client. It logs into meetings. It has audio video controls. It looks like it's everything that you are used to using with Zoom. And then there's that additional application that's sitting there for the settings. So it just sort of, it sits there and joins on the network and is controlled by that.
So it is truly an extension. It takes the Zoom that you know and love and adds more capabilities that allow you to do more things that you might want to do. Is that a reasonable thing?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, and we did that on purpose so that the interface was familiar and it could do all the same things that the vanilla client could do.
Okay, we got a couple here, Hasmukh and Dan Hubert, and I know Hasmukh for sure is a early, so I want to make sure we address his question and keep people up to speed. Hasmukh, go ahead.
Yeah, Andy, if you can just cover that initial setup where you went through about the UDP or the addressing that you need for controlling certain applications or Zoom applications as well.
Sure thing. So it's all going to depend on the controller that you want to use and the thing that you want to get information back to. So for example, let me walk you through setting this up with Isadora, which is a pretty visual media server. So it should be pretty clear about how that works. As I say, I'm not going to be able to log it into the webinar right now, but I'll show you sort of the principles of it. And then what I'll do is I'll spin up a meeting. I'll throw mine into a meeting and I'll show you it controlling that meeting. So you can get a sense of it here. It'll take a couple minutes to get to that point. But popping back over to the desktop, I'm going to go grab my Isadora media server.
Andy, is there any chance you can zoom in your screen? A lot of people are saying they can't see it.
Yeah, Andy, it looks like you're sending us 720, I think, from your side, as opposed to 1080. You can either zoom, or I don't know how disruptive it is for you to do a screen share instead of a cut.
Well, you know what? If I'm not in the if I'm not inside of ZoomOSC, it should be fine for me to screen share. So let me pop over to that, and we'll show it that way.
Okay, great.
Let me just do a scene here and pop into screen share.
A note on getting the highest resolution also while he's doing that. Anyone that's watching, make sure that you go full screen with whatever you're watching it on so that your instance pulls the highest resolution that's available. Because if you're scaled too small, even if it's like 4 pixels too small, you're going to get lower resolution. So
Yep.
Great. Okay. So this is the Isadora media server. It's a node-based application, and we can talk more about the specifics of Isadora as we sort of get into things, but I want to show you just how to connect ZoomOSC to a media server, just the basics of OSC routing. Basically, this is not so much ZoomOSC specific as it is just like how to get OSC from one app to another. And the video that I'm going to post tomorrow is going to show you how to do what we're about to show you in QLab, Companion, Isadora again, basically any OSC app that I touch OSC, I'm going to show you how to get the communication set up with all those applications. But inside of Isadora, you double click and you type in OSC multi-transmit. And that creates a node for OSC multi-transmit. And the thing that may be familiar is that these components here are the same components that we were looking for when we talked about the addresses at the top of the day. So UDP address is going to be localhost for me because ZoomOSC is running on the same machine as the media server is. But if this was another computer, you could type in, whatever computer that was going to be, and you could, make that the location that it's going to. But I'm going to leave mine at localhost. The port. So this is the port that Isadora is going to talk to. So this is going to be the receiving port. And by default in ZoomOSC, that's 9090. So I'm going to just put in 9090 there. Now this is the address from the OSC packet. And this is where I have to figure out, well, what function do I want to call? And if you need to look that up, there's an API document that we're going to share with you. It's this file here. So this file is your friend because it shows you everything that the application is capable of doing and how to get it to do that thing. In a moment, I'll talk about the sort of how to target users and things like that. But if I scroll down, let's say I want to pin somebody. All right, well, here's the information for pinning. The command is pin, shock. So I'm going to go over to here and skipping the stuff about output syntax. It's going to be /zoom. Tell us to use ZoomOSC. Then we have to specify how we want to identify the user. So I'm going to use the username, for example. So I'm going to type username. All of our API is camel case. So that's the first letter, lowercase. And then if it was additional words, that would be a capital letter in the following words. And then /pin. And then I have to look at the document again and say, okay, well, does it take any arguments? Well, no, it doesn't take anything specific. It just takes the participant. So that's specified by username here. So if I want to say, okay, there's going to be one input to this, and that's going to be text, and let's make that editable, and then we'll just put Alex. So what this will do is if I was in this call right now and I hit the transmit button or I hooked up a trigger to it, when this fires, this will tell ZoomOSC that it wants to pin somebody with the username Alex Lindsay. This is again, all referenced through this document that we're going to share that shows you how to do everything from spotlighting, multi-spotlighting, all of that stuff. The way that this becomes more nuanced is in this first section here where we talk about how to control groups of people. And this is the big change from how things used to work to how things are working now in version 4. Used to be that the way this worked was you threw it into a meeting, it grabbed everybody who was in the meeting, and then it gave them all a number, and then you just fired off that number to designate the person you want to call the action on. Now we have 5 different ways that you can do it because we know that you don't always have information about what the username of the people in your call is going to be. You don't always know, you don't always want to work with them by their username. You just want to say, hey, that person in the 3rd row, 4th column, I want to pin them now. And that's why we built these things out. So you have all these different control modes. So when it comes to targeting a user, you're basically building a command here. So what I did before was I just took a username. So I did Zoom username, and then that was all I needed to get Alex. But let's say I wanted to do a chat, and I wanted to chat some people, but not everybody. There's a couple different ways you can specify groups. You could say, instead of username, I could say all. I could say the people in the target list, which is the old way that ZoomOSC used to work, where it had the text file with the numbers. You still do that. We still support that workflow, but this is now called targets. Panelists and attendees, you guys probably know what that is. That's just in a webinar, which group do you want to talk to? And then there's exclusionary groups. So this is where you combine these targets with these groups, and you can make exceptions. So if I wanted to say, I want to chat everybody except people in gallery index 5, I would do /zoom/ all except gallery index 5 or gallery index chat 5, and then that would chat everybody in the call except for the person who's in the 5th index of the gallery view. Niche use case, but you can see how it starts to grow and you combine these things together. That's the power of an OSC API. So if I said, okay, I want to chat everybody except Alex, I could do /zoom/ all except /username/ chat Alex, my chat message. And that would be able to talk to everybody except for Alex. when you you could also have the option to build up a group entirely from scratch. This right here is what makes Zoom OSC Pro extremely powerful with the multi-pin command. This allows you to make super sources on the fly from the gallery view, because you can basically say, all right, I want to use /Zoom/users/username, Marty, Charles, James, David, and go. And then that will add pin and then just put their names in and go. And that will create a multi-pin of that group instantly. And then you can clear them and you can put up another multi-pin of a custom group. And so that's this here is going to be your friend when it comes to like creating your own type of things. And then over here, I just put a couple of examples. Pinning people by gallery.
A lot of
index in a
smiles
series.
pop up suddenly.
Yeah.
A lot of smiles.
That's the big one for the Pro version, is we support multi-pin and multi-spot, and combine that with the new philosophy of how the program works. You get this just incredible level of control about creating these super sources out of the gallery view. And you can still keep the gallery underneath it, cut between it. And I can, next time when we have a meeting set up and I can actually log in and show you, I think it'll blow your mind because it's really, really powerful. And it's exciting to see that. So anyway, that's a long way of answering the question about how to get started. But this document is going to be your friend, and we'll send this out after the show today, so that you can see exactly how do you want to construct the thing that goes into the address box. Every program that you work with is going to have some way of doing this. Isadora looks this way. QLab looks different. QLab, it's all one line. You put spaces between the payloads that you want to do in the address. Bitfocus Companion is similar to Isadora. It has two lines where you put the address and then you put the payloads, and they all look a little different. And that's why I've spent the time to create this video that's going to show you how to get started with just OSC, not Zoom OSC, but just OSC in general, and all of the applications as the primer. And then your job over the course of the week is going to be to take the primer on how to use OSC and then use Zoom OSC with it and get the controls going that way. So that's the project for the week, is going to be getting that initial step done. We're taking a real small bite for the first week.
And the key is, by the way, is just to my video works again. I don't know why it broke. So the key is to try it, fail, ask questions. Remember, you can ask questions on Discord as well as bring them up for next Saturday. So you don't have to wait until next Saturday to ask your questions. If you're having issues, if you're lost somewhere, use Discord for that. If you still haven't figured it out by next Saturday, then go ahead and ask them. Go ahead and take it away, Andy.
Great. Would we like to dive into a couple more questions, perhaps? I know we're starting to stack those up.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and ask a couple more questions.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions. Tony Mobley in Newman, Georgia, has the next ones. Does Zoom OSC software need to be on multiple machines?
It doesn't have to be, but it can be. The thing with the Mac is that you can run multiple instances on the same box. So that's how we do like scale testing of the applications. We'll spin up 50 instances on a single Mac and then jump them all into a meeting. But no, you don't have to run them on multiple machines. But it is very nice if you do, because you get those. It might be easier for you to organize your addressing and all of that stuff, and it might be a little leaner on the processor. So I've seen a couple people build broadcast rooms with Zoom OSC where they have 3 or 4 computers. They all run 2 monitors. They all have Zoom OSC running there. And then they have a single controller. And that controller is forwarding IPs to all those different boxes and is allowing them to get basically ISO feeds of everybody in the meeting with the pin layout. So that's another way you could work.
Next question.
Eddie Martinez of Sacramento says, what's the best practice for removing a speaker or host when screen sharing? Can this be done through Zoom OSC?
Are we talking about that box that pops up in the screen share on that sub panel there versus I could use some clarification on that, but I think that the screen sharing sub box is something that we don't have like a specific command to get rid of, but we do allow you to drag it out. So you should be able to kind of manually go in and deal with that. It all depends on, do you have multi-monitor mode selected? If you do you have, 2 physical displays connected at that time? That one is sort of an archetypal Zoom thing that we just sort of inherit from them. So
next question.
Dave Chalmers of Glasgow, Scotland. Does anyone have any experience using central control, there's a URL there, as an OSC gateway for Zoom OSC?
I will say that we're working with Joda Max on adding an official integration for central control. So that'll be coming.
That's great. Next question.
Dave Chalmers, again back from Glasgow. Is there a good solution for capturing the virtual display output of a virtual Zoom OSC instance? NDI screen capture perhaps, or something else?
It's a good option. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. If you're comfortable with an NDI workflow, you could run scan convert and grab all the displays and throw them into your broadcaster. If you are not comfortable with an NDI workflow, or better yet, you have the budget to not be comfortable with an NDI workflow, you can throw out an SDI workflow and then send all the displays out like that and capture them into a switcher or something like that.
Just on that, are you able to, for some reason, see things that Zoom can't, like deck links on the way out? Are you able to?
No, not in a traditional way. What we do have is we have open sourced shaders, and we have other sort of addendum programs to Zoom OSC that allow you to do that kind of thing. So if you wanted to have throw a media server in between Zoom OSC and your SDI outputs, we give you a shader that will automatically create the individual sources. And then there's other things that we've done, like we give you the ability to, if Zoom sees the deck link, we can let you choose how to interface. That's actually what we were working on with Peter earlier. Yeah. So.
You were going to say, Peter?
Yeah, he solved my problem that rumor has it on Monday will be solved by Zoom proper, which is I could get to my get to the right camera with 508 virtual cameras sitting in because of the deck like card.
So we gave Peter an OSC command to go get to Mimo Live because he couldn't find it in the list. So
I couldn't get to
Zoom.
it.
I beat you to that. Yeah.
Well, and the question is we have all those outputs. It's just that Zoom up until now at least hasn't seen the outputs. Can't output to a deck link card. It can input from a deck link card, and I had the same problem. I had to make the monitor bigger for something recently to get to the right deck link connection. Go ahead, Beju, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Andy, so speaking of the outputs, can you use something like Black Syphon to get the outputs out of a Black Magic card, basically?
Absolutely.
So we can just use that.
Yeah, so we have, and some of you have seen this because I've demoed it when I wasn't being recorded, a program that creates ISO outputs of Zoom and throws them out to Syphon and throws them out to NDI. That's coming soon. We wanted to get this one done first because that program takes everything that Zoom OSC Pro is, inherits it, and then stacks ISO feeds onto it. And so the way that I will officially recommend doing that when that comes out will be to throw Black Syphon and Zoom ISO on the same box, and then you have all your SDI outputs of every participant in the call.
Great. Next question.
David Brady is in from New York with, I've noticed the experience of Zoom meetings and webinars differs from the streaming experience. Participant order, 2-up spotlights, and so forth. Can Zoom OSC help drive that to be a more uniform experience?
I would say experience for who, right? That I think is an important part of it, because what we can help you with is getting the information about what Zoom is doing so that on your ingest side, you can standardize the look based on the information that you're getting about what Zoom is doing. When it comes to like people who are sitting there in Zoom, I don't necessarily know that they're going to have a different experience just because Zoom OSC is on the call. I think it would be more accurate to say that if you're in a broadcaster pipeline where the video is flowing through something and going out, we can give you metadata to help you structure that in a standardized way.
Next question.
Art by Jr. of Cupertino. What happens with Zoom OSC when Zoom releases a new version?
So that's a great question. There are two types of updates to Zoom. There are security updates and there are feature updates. Security updates, we get a month in advance of when they hit the public client. That is designed to allow us to update our integrations to be compatible because, for example, when they went to encrypted mode, legacy clients in the Zoom SDK, we're not going to be able to connect anymore to those meetings. So we get a heads up on that so that we're ready to go when that comes out. Feature updates are a different story. They typically hit the vanilla client before they hit the SDK. So if Zoom comes out with some flashy feature that you want to have access to in the Zoom client, the Zoom OSC client, excuse me, then it will take us a little bit of time to get that in there. A, because Zoom has to give it the feature to us, and then B, we have to go build it on 2 operating systems to get the interface right. But we've put good bones down now that when that happens, we can generally get an update very quickly. Just a little bit of perspective on that, Multi-Spotlight became available, I think, in late August or early September. It was released to developers on December 28th. So that's what we're dealing with there, and we are opening up dialogue with Zoom to try to talk about why that's hard for people who integrate with their apps as, you know, as a business. So
Next question.
Jason Fitzgerald, New York City. Andy, can we get a high-level overview of what we can do with Zoom OSC that's not really possible without it? We get that automate stuff, we can automate stuff that would typically take lots of clicks like pins and spotlights. What other far-out stuff is possible?
Oh, I love that, because I've gotten to see a lot of really cool different things that people have done. So I've seen people make automatic titlers, where they have a little media server sitting there. We send a command when the active speaker changes, and then it gets the active speaker change and goes and takes the text of their username and throws it into a lower third graphic and triggers it to come up. So you can have automatic titling. That was pretty fun. We have this thing called the gallery tracking system in Zoom OSC that tells you the order and shape of the gallery view. The reason we do that is if you bring that into a media server, you can crop it automatically and make individual ISO feeds. So in the world of theater, people have done amazing things. They've been able to rearrange the gallery view to have like all of the audience around the central actors and make them larger and make them appear differently and animate and tween them and move all that around using OBS or a media server. And we're giving them the information that their programs need to be able to do that. Joe Shea just released a whole suite of applications designed to create interoperability between QLab and between OBS and media servers and Touch OSC and Zoom OSC. And so we give all those applications the information they need to be able to treat all of the camera inputs as individual ISO feeds to those programs. And then they can mix and match and composite and do all sorts of crazy stuff. The other big one is the fact that we automate things not just makes it easier, but it makes it so much faster. You know, the other day, Alex said that pinning in a show slows it down like two to 3 or 5 times as much when you're in a show environment. You have to go look up the participant list and find the person to pin. Because we give you a single button to be able to pin anybody in the call, you get that speed back. So a lot of our early theater work became a lot about filmic processes inside of live theater. So it was about camera cuts and placements and pacing and those side of things that can be very specific with Zoom OSC because it is acting like a switcher for Zoom. And that gives you just a whole nother language to be able to cut a show together when you have the ability to call up a source instantly.
Next question.
James in Dublin, Ireland says, can Zoom OSC be used on the new M1 Macs?
Depends on how you define used. So yes, it launches, and yes, it has all the OSC controls, but everybody's video is pink. That I don't really know if that defines usability. We're waiting on Zoom to update the SDK to support the M1 natively, and so we can depinkify the video. But all of the OSC stuff should work. So if you just need it to run headlessly in the background, yeah. But don't ingest video from it right now.
Generally, pink is a issue between RGB and YUV of in misinterpreting them one for the other. Next question.
It'll be golden for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Eddie Martinez of Sacramento says, can Zoom OSC be used standalone or for best use cases? Is Isadora, QLab, or similar required?
So Zoom OSC is an interface for other applications to talk. It doesn't do anything by itself. That's intentional. We could have made a controller for Zoom, but then we would have locked out all these other possible use cases. So this is really designed to be just when you're evaluating a production pipeline, we want you to look at Zoom OSC and say, this is just going to be a straight up replacement for Zoom in my pipeline. This client is going to be the no-brainer drop-in replacement. It functions the same way as the vanilla one. It just adds all these other functions. Now down the line, I am personally interested in saying, okay, well, we spent the last year learning about how to make a good interface and seeing what people do with controllers. Maybe we can make a good controller ourselves. And that might be something we think about, whether it's hardware or software down the line. We might come back to that. But right now, it's designed to be used with other software.
Go ahead, Victor.
I'm going to ask the most noob question of noob questions. Do I need to run Zoom OSC only to do show control, but my regular participation would still be in the Zoom app? Or am I doing both things on Zoom OSC? There's the noob question.
It's a great question, and it's personal preference for your pipeline. It behaves exactly like the Zoom client. So you can join with video and audio and have all of those controls and the same quality and all of that running. That's not always to your advantage. Sometimes it's nice to be able to have a separate dedicated application that is just there as the control interface, and then use the vanilla client to participate with audio and video. Especially when I'm doing trainings, that's essential because that's how I show the application itself. In a production workflow, I would say the only other nice thing about not doing that is that you get that redundancy if you do split it up and you have audio visual participation and you are able to have it come from a different program than the controller program. If you don't need to simplify it, don't let it be two applications that do different things and serve different purposes in your pipeline. But functionality wise, it should be fine. You should be able just to log in and do everything you normally do and do the OSC.
Go ahead, Peter.
I was going to say I'm actually using the one client right now, again because Andy solved my problem, which is I can get to the Mimo Live virtual camera because the Zoom OSC client can find it.
Right.
Whereas the Zoom client cannot.
Marty?
So you mentioned that in the Windows environment, you can only run one instance of Zoom OSC. Can you run it and the vanilla client side by side?
You can. Yep. And we do that all the time. Yep.
Next question.
Leo Mindell in the panel from London. Does Zoom OSC control everything in a Zoom call? For example, breakouts, polls, moving people in and out of the rating room, etc.
So you'll want to check our API for the full list of functionalities. We expose a shocking amount of the API that Zoom gives us, but not everything. And like I said earlier, some of the breakout room stuff we're holding back because Zoom is misreporting it. On Mac, active speaker, we cut off because it was telling us from the API that the wrong person was talking. So our command looked wrong. So we cut off some of that stuff, and we fact check Zoom pretty hard on their API. And so we're restrictive about how much we expose until we've absolutely validated it. So we are a little cagey about some of that, but we expose the vast majority of things that the API exposes. We just hold back the ones that don't work.
As a quick note for our audience, we're drowning in questions. So, I don't think we've ever had where the questions just keep on going. So we'll stay here as long as Andy's willing to answer questions to get us off the ground. But at the same time, it's really important to vote. There is a high probability we are not going to get to the bottom of the questions today, which is an unusual thing for what we do. But there is an enormous amount of interest. So definitely take a look at the questions in Mukana and vote the ones up that you're most interested in, because otherwise we may not get to them. All right, next question.
Ward Cameron from Banff, Alberta, Canada. Can we send custom commands through Companion and assign them to StreamDeck buttons?
I'm not sure the relationship to ZoomOSC specifically. I think, yes, you can. I mean, ZoomOSC will allow you to receive information from Companion. Does anyone else on the panel have an idea about what that might be in reference to?
Peter?
Well,
you're muted, Peter. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I unmuted myself and muted myself on one click. I mean, I use it today. I mean, Andy, that's what you showed me the other day. So I'm using the beta build of the Companion module. This allows me to send custom commands today that allow me to swap things around and drop in lower thirds, to your point, and stack them as parts of Companion macros to StreamDeck that also talk to Mimo Live at the same time. So the two are, so now I have Zoom OSC properly, and Companion and Mimo Live working together.
And I think Ward is here. Are you there, Ward? Can I?
Yeah.
I
guess my main question was, until the instance for Companion is updated for version 4, can we go in and type one of the commands that you've showed us into Companion and fire that now prior to having the updated instance?
And yes. Ward, you're coming in real low. I don't know exactly what changed when Mike checked it out. Go ahead, Andy.
So absolutely. And to be clear, the integration that we are creating for BitFocus is variables. It's all on the input return side. So this is the thing that, if you saw our thing on AV Tech Talks, that's the thing we were like squashing and squeezing the gallery view, and the StreamDeck buttons were like moving the people's names back and forth as we were. That's the variables. Yeah.
So you could set it up where let's say you have a 32 key StreamDeck or whatever, and you've got, let's say, 32 people in the room. You could theoretically have those buttons literally represent what you're looking at in the layout, so that you see everybody's pictures or whatever down there, and you just or name or whatever, and just push the button, and you'd always be able to just hard select them.
Yep, and so that puts their name on the key too. So it's not only that it's very personal as it changes around. And this is true for the gallery view. It's true for video devices. If you want to get somebody else's video devices and populate the names of their devices on your StreamDeck, and then press it to set their mic or turn on their original sound or something like that, that's the power of variables in Companion. And it's fed by our OSC engine. So that was the hard part, was getting those variables to talk to OSC. Once we did that, we exposed a ton of stuff on the back line.
Sorry, my mind was going somewhere else.
But the forward direction,
I got a lot of ideas. My brain is starting to cycle up. I'm sorry, I put you all to the side for a second. You saw my ADD take over there for a second. Ed and then Mickey.
And Andy, if I recall too, if you rearrange your gallery, it'll rearrange the buttons on the Stream Deck, right?
Yeah, so it's not only, so Alex is right that if it's like a 32 and 32, like it'll match. But if it's like, if you have a smaller gallery view and then you stretch it into columns, it'll swing down the buttons so that it's literally the resolution and layout aspect ratio of the Zoom call represented right there on the keys. I'd say this is great and fun. I would say that in a production environment, I probably don't want my controls remapping themselves while I'm trying to switch a show. It's helpful when you need to think about the index though of the gallery view, like where it's like, okay, I need this person visually to be, I don't care who it is. I just, the person in this spot is my problem. Then that's great to have the keys remapping and stuff like that. Yeah.
And so with ZoomOSC, you could do things like it was just thought process of something we had with Hangouts that we built in the past. You could theoretically click on your StreamDeck, do like a double tap on each person, and ZoomOSC would only auto switch between those 3 people or 4 people and ignore the sound from everybody else or anything else. It would just auto switch between what we would call a soft click. Would that be possible?
Yeah, we give you the audio controls. If you have the remote control section, you can actually
not audio controls, but like there's 3 of us, or there's 32 of us, and there's 3 people that I want to be talking, and I just wanted to only pay attention to when it does auto switch. I only want to pay attention to these 3 people. So if anyone else raises their hand or starts talking, we can hear it. Like Zoom will hear it, but it won't auto switch the video. It'll only auto switch between people who have been soft clicked. Is that possible? Or would that be possible to program it?
Zoom's auto switching, yeah, you could totally program it too for like going out of Zoom. Yes, remember that in Zoom it's voice activity based on the client side unless you're using pins. So you can set that rule up correctly for a broadcaster workflow where it can call up just those subsets of inputs, but it wouldn't necessarily, like if you were in the Zoom meeting, it has no idea that you're doing that on your end.
And would you? No, but for broadcast, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And you could control attack and decay of the auto switch.
It depends on. Yeah, it would depend on what exactly you're using to control. But like, I don't know how it would work in Companion specifically, but I think you could set that kind of thing up. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Tucker, and then I'm sorry, Mickey, and then Tucker.
I lost my train of thought. Just so much going on in my head. Sorry. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from Andy is that in that situation, what you would do is you would basically be saying, these are the 3 people I want this other third-party system to watch and trigger on, and it would be affecting Zoom. It would be triggering Zoom OSC to pin those people as it needs to. But Zoom's operation is not going to change.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Mickey.
So yeah, but the whole, like, say, remote controlling other participants' cameras and volumes, each participant has to have Zoom OSC installed, right?
Right. And just while I have you, Mickey, I'm going to be furious with you if you don't build out an integration to be able to do mic check. If you don't have that at some point in this series, I am going to hit the roof.
Go ahead, Leo, and then we'll move on to the next question. And anyone raising their hand, just so you know that we don't bring more people into the panel after we get started just because of a variety of security reasons. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I know I know, Alex, you're looking at it from a broadcast perspective. I'm looking at it from a meeting control perspective, where I have to control 250 people in a meeting.
Right.
Everything you've just said there, Andy, about being able to literally, if anybody has to do that sort of thing where you're unmuting, telling them to turn on the camera, unmuting them, bringing them in, spotlighting them, taking them out, doing all of that is just an absolute nightmare in Zoom. And we get it wrong all the time with 4 people operating it. If you're saying I can literally go and look at my StreamDeck and go, right, we've got them loaded, bang, bring them on, that's it, turn them off, and that's it. And
Exactly.
that's exactly what, because we even bring in timer clocks and everything. And it's just, we've got all these operations. Yeah, we can all hold our stream decks up.
Well, Jesse's got the specific page that does that from our 3.2 integration. That's
can
exactly
you get
it.
I've only got 32 buttons on one of my stream decks. I need more buttons.
Or you see more stream decks. Go ahead, Tucker, and then Peter, and then we'll go on to next questions.
Yeah, the super powerful thing that I'm hearing from this is that I could program it so that in a meeting, I can make it perform more like a webinar, in the fact that I can say, I only want these people's cameras to be able to be active, and anyone else is going to be automatically muted and camera off. So you can start to kind of protect yourself in that situation, which I think is kind of what you're talking about, Leo.
You can build joining rules. You can make it, when you receive a OSC, this person joined, you can say, okay, if this person joined and they're not on my list, go send an off command to them automatically. You can build all these kind of pairings. Yeah.
I have one question. Sorry, I'll come back.
Peter?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with you, but I don't know what the professional educators will think about this, but on those weekends where I'm doing STEM education for a bunch of 8 to 11-year-old Cub Scouts, being able to control them like you're talking about, Andy, is quite amazing and will make my life easier.
James, real quick. Oh, can't hear you.
Now, sorry, I beg your pardon. To do that sort of control, Andy, what sort of permissions do you have to get off the participants?
Well, for audio control, for the unmute side, you have to get pre-approved consent to audio unmute, which is how Office Hours has been doing it. You just go through the Zoom settings and you can set that up. Video off is absolute. Video on is via request, unless they're running Zoom OSC, in which case Zoom OSC automatically accepts any request that it receives. So that will just turn it on with the request to come on.
Next question.
Raymond Sweet of New Orleans actually has one. It says, is it possible to say out acronyms? And that's my bad. I'll try to do more of that. Okay. Some of us have never had a UDP to put into an SRT before. I feel your pain.
Go ahead. Next question.
Simon Daniel Jerke of Fremont, California. Probably pronouncing your name wrong. Sorry. I have noticed that the camera channel on ZoomOSC 3.0 was never capable to exceed more than 1280 by 720. Has this been resolved with 4.0?
I've been able to get contribution at 1080p from ZoomOSC, so we should be good. I think it just depends on how resolution in Zoom is. There's so many different things that you have to check for. Is the meeting set up right? Is your account level set up right? Is your camera capable of outputting that? So I would check the chain, but I've been able to get it to work.
Next question. Taylor
Glad of Orem, Utah, and is recording participants in the gallery an option in 4.0, even in just the GUI graphic user interface, if not through OSC commands?
Reordering is an option through the UI, yes. Reordering reporting is a big thing that we do in the Mac version. And then in Windows, we give you the order so that you can use external applications to reorder it and resize it and do all sorts of things like that. And I can show you case studies of that in the future.
Next question.
Andrew Moyer of Oakville, Ontario, Canada says, how much will the Pro version of ZoomOSC cost?
ZoomOSC Pro will launch for $35 a month.
That's great. Next question.
Patrick Shonas of Little Rock, Arkansas. I've heard Zoom ISO referenced several times over the past few months. Is that a standalone app or ZoomOSC coupled with Isadora with a bunch of nodes?
So this is a standalone application that will genuinely give you the outputs from the program itself. You're alluding to that we have, the GLSL shader code that allows you to hook it up to a Zoom meeting and simulate it from the gallery view. But those are, of course, at the resolution that you perceive when you crop out of gallery. This is not that. This is the actual full screen resolution of every participant.
Next, and a reminder to the audience that we have more questions rolling in. We have too many questions to answer today. So what you want to do is vote on the questions that we have here to make sure that we get to the ones that make the most difference. Go ahead, next question.
Rick Bakos of South Bend, Indiana. Can you pre-build multiple super sources and have them available?
Yes, yes. That is so important. Yes. You build it in your controller software. So you say, all right, I want these sources as my list of users, and then you just pop between them, and then that sets up your arrangement. Now just watch, because Zoom's UI itself is sometimes a little strange when you go from a super source to a super source. I'm saying super source to refer to multi-pin and multi-spot, but if you go from one multi-pin to another multi-pin and you throw a clear in between there, you'll see it like whoop whoop and it come back. Use the gallery view to hide it. So if you have multiple computers available, what you could do is you could have gallery view up, set the pin underneath the gallery view, and then pull a gallery view out, and there's your new multi-pin, or cut away to a full or something like that on the second screen. So just be a little careful if you go from multi-pin to multi-pin on the same box. Use 2 would be the cleanest way, but yes, absolutely, you can preset those.
And so that would be another case of that, like clicking, where I could click 4 people on a StreamDeck and say go, and it would just put the 4 of them into a super source.
Yep.
That's cool. All right, next question.
TJ Asher, the panel here in Minneapolis. Does ZoomOSC work with free Zoom accounts or only with paid accounts?
Both are supported. You don't even have to log into the app. You can if you don't log into the app, you join with a free account via the only join option. It's just like if you don't have a Zoom account and you join a Zoom meeting. That's how it works.
Next question.
Christopher Towson, looks like. We plan to use ZoomOSC with 1,000 participants. Is there a minimum PC Mac requirement?
Do you need unique control of all of those participants would be the first thing I would ask, because if you need like granular reporting on the states of all of those outputs, that's when the application starts to really work. You might also consider, if you have this coming up soon, ZoomOSC 3.2.1 on Mac, especially if you're using it on Mac, was really, really clean in terms of its processing overhead when you set the logging level to nothing. That's what allows us to scale so dramatically. I haven't done 1,000-person scale testing with version 4, so do test it ahead of time. ZoomOSC itself is not a processor-hungry application. It's any more so than Zoom is. The OSC is real slim. What becomes problematic is the sort of the performance when you need to. Zoom's API is what lags out. Zoom's API struggles to report 1,000 pieces of information at once when we're asking for it. So we got it really, really fine-tuned with the 3.2.1. I'm not sure how that performs at scale, that kind of scale with 4.
Next question.
James in Dublin, Ireland asks if there's a ZoomOSC showcase where example uses can be reviewed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have collected over the past year a ton of case studies from all sorts of different events, and we're compiling them right now on our website to go with the public launch of 4. So I'll keep you apprised of those as they come out. But we also have a channel in our Slack group where people are posting pieces that they've done with ZoomOSC, and that's under our showcase tab.
And in the future, we may drag people from either this panel or other people that we'll just try to bring in and have them do kind of a show and tell if they're willing to. So we'll work on that as well.
And Alex, I think that's part of the goal too of what we're doing here, is that every week we'll have a little bit of that, a piece of it as they build out the workflows. We'll see what different people are doing with different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Will there be a Zoom OSC version 4 companion configuration? Asked Jesse Mills of San Francisco.
Yep, we are going to be an official vendor on Companion. So we should be in the next official Companion release under Liminal, and you'll find us there. The beta, we should be in the nightly builds coming soon. And if you need something urgently, we have the ability to hand off an entire build of Companion separately that we can distribute if you need something right away.
Amazing. Next question.
Juno Beckering of Mardek, I believe that's the Netherlands. I have a question, but I promise not to. The licenses we use daily rental machines, is it easy to transform or move out the licenses to other machines? So I guess it's about.
Could not be more simple. If you go over here and you hit deactivate, the application is deactivated. If you put a key in, hit activate, it's activated. And then if you need cloud licensing management, send us an email and we can give you a user portal to be able to manage your licenses from a website. That's
great. Next question.
Victor Cahill, Brookings, South Dakota. Is Syphon display already a part of Zoom OSC?
Whatever Zoom did in this latest client, insofar as Syphon virtual cams are supported, mine work. Double check, especially if you've got like M1 stuff going on, but I believe it's fine. I looked okay last time I checked it out.
Next question.
Comes from James Clendenden in Vancouver. And James says, does ZoomOSC show up as a participant in a meeting, or can it be hidden from the other participants?
So it joins a Zoom meeting just like a participant, and you can have it just sit there with video off in the corner and hide non-video if you need to get it out of the broadcast capture, or hide self-view. Typically, we'll recommend you do hide self-view and turn video on, and then you turn ZoomOSC into your feedback monitor. That's typically what I do.
Next question.
Sorry, Jonathan Erb of Dunedin says, is there a way to have individual control of pages and pins in separate instances in Zoom from one companion machine?
Pins, absolutely. Pages of pins, I don't think we give you a control right now to tabulate the gallery view if you have more than the maximum number. We could look into that, but yeah, it's certainly the idea of having one companion to control multiple Zoom OSCs. Yeah, that's absolutely valid.
Next question.
Hausmuck, our friend from Cape Town, says, I was left behind within the first few minutes into Andy's presentation. It's probably understanding the basis of OSC. Are there resources we can leverage for rookies, or is there a possibility of an after-hours session for some of us who are starting at pure ground level?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm more than happy to spend time getting people set up with that level. We also have a YouTube channel where we've posted how to get started with Isadora, QLab, and the BitFocus companion, and that's your quick start, and that presumes nothing. That video is, really just starting with the pins, and I would have done that today, but I can't actually show you the result of the action. So if you want to see that right now, the best thing to do is go hop on the YouTube channel.
And remember, this is what I would highly recommend is try. There's 4 weeks. Is play with it, figure out what you don't understand, watch as many videos as possible. We're all working on this together. Use Discord, ask the questions that are there. Try not do private ones, but try to not do too much private as much as do it in the Discord thing so that we can all learn together, because we're all going to run into things. And what we want, the goal here is, or the experiment beyond us all learning Zoom OSC, is this idea that we all think about the same thing at the same time, and we all kind of learn from each other and peer it out. So next question.
Paul Prusakowski from Gainesville, Florida. Is there a written curriculum for this series of Zoom OSC trainings with weekly learning objectives and homework assignments?
Yes. The first one goes out tomorrow. I'll sort of disperse them piece by piece. Again, what we're going to do is the goal is to build a video production pipeline powered by Zoom using Zoom OSC. So we'll every week we're going to add one more thing. So this week we're going to do, getting your application to talk to Zoom. Next week we're going to do the reverse, your Zoom OSC talking back to your application, putting the names on the keys, that kind of stuff. The week following that, we'll throw in video processing and automation. Week after that, we'll do remote control. So we're going to build it over time. And again, everybody's going to have their own. I mean, my goal is that everybody has their own sort of specific thing. We're not all copying the same workflow, because we don't all do the same things. That's one thing that I've learned over the time at Office Hours. We're all doing real different things and have different priorities and use different tools to do it. We think we can help you in every single one of those.
Next question.
Marty Adius, Silver Spring, Maryland. I wanted to verify something I heard. To establish an exclusive panel at a meeting, as Alex discussed, do all the panelists have to have Zoom OSC? If so, do they have to be licensed copies?
So Alex was talking about exclusive panel insofar as broadcast is concerned, which is usually achieved by the pin. So no. So you can pin anybody regardless of whether there's what level of Zoom OSC they are. Just if they're a Zoom OSC at all, it doesn't even matter. You can pin anybody just like you normally could. If you want remote control, that's when you need Zoom OSC Pro on both sides.
Next question.
Rick Bako of South Bend, Indiana says, is there a tutorial of API for Dummies? And API is generally Applications Program Interface.
Yes. So we have that document that I'm going to style, clean up, and go and put out. And then I'm going to start posting a lot of videos about the API. That's going to be kind of my other project. In addition to doing this, is going to be showing every single use case I can think of.
Go ahead, Hausmuck.
Andy, where will you be posting these? On your site or on Discord?
I'll post them on our YouTube channel, and I'll notify Discord when I do that.
That's perfect. Great. Next question.
Mickey from our panel from the Philippines. Is the incompatibility with Zoom webinars a limitation of the Zoom API?
We should be webinar compatible. The problem is we're not compatible with this type of webinar where certain things are locked off for the purposes of presentation and production. It should be able to hop into a webinar just fine. There might be some on Windows, there might be a couple of bugs here with the webinar API and the joining process. But the main reason I didn't want to use webinars is because you have to pre-register the account for this type of thing that we're doing, and we don't have a chat, so the remote control doesn't work.
Next question. Oop, lost you, Bill. Next question is from Dave Chambers. He said, does ZoomOSC give an easy way to script the spinning up of large numbers of quote-unquote fake virtual Zoom participants for stress testing large virtual audience systems?
So Guy knows, if he's around, that I've joked about the Zoom Air Force, where you can use ZoomOSC to schedule a bombing, and that yes. So there is a join meeting command via OSC where you can specify the meeting ID, the password, and the username, and you can join OSC via that. So you can, and then in Mac we support scripting, so that you could build a script to spin up 100 Zoom OSCs on the same box. Just to get them into the call. Yeah.
Strafing run. Next question is from Andrew Lipnick here in San Francisco. He said, what is the difference between OSC Pro and free?
Sure. So everything that Zoom OSC has always been remains free. So there's nothing that was free previously and is now going to Pro. In fact, we've expanded the number of things that are on the free tier. So all of that stuff that has always been there, and the new things, the user interface, the new ways of addressing people, all of that is still going into the free version. The Pro version adds multi-pin and multi-spot, remote control, and this thing called verbose outputting. Verbose outputting is the thing that allows the StreamDeck to be able to react to the keys. It provides full frames of information about the Zoom call so that integrators can build out their custom integrations on third-party platforms to be able to get all of our data at once in a packet that they can parse and build out something custom.
I believe 4.5 hours was the max on that battery. Sorry about that.
Very good.
Stan Chan.
Stan Chan had pretty much the same question about features in Pro, so we'll go ahead and move that one forward. Next question.
Simon Daniel Jerky, looks like it's, and I again apologize if I'm messing up your name. Fremont, California. Is ZoomOSC capable to get feedback to another application in webinar when an attendee raises their hand?
Yes, we report on raising hands. That was surprisingly hard to get working, but we do report on raised hands. You can raise a hand, you can lower a hand, and you can get a notification when somebody raises their hand with their index in the gallery view, their name, all that stuff. So
one of my first ones is going to be for Zoom webinar on this one will be that I see all the hands and I can say add to panel, like just hit it and just have them add them all. Go ahead, John.
Andy's, that's not only the hand, but it's any of the raising things.
It's only the hand. We
can't do a love heart. You know, I got love versus I got a hand.
No, and I think the first one we do is the coffee because we're all pretty exhausted.
Next question.
Marty Adius of Silver Springs. For network settings, can ZoomOSC talk to multiple programs?
To be completely honest, I have never tried putting a broadcast address in the output side, but I suspect it would work. So we give it a shot. Let me know.
Next question.
Moving on to Chad Lafarge of St. Louis, Missouri. If I have 10 AWS instances for ZoomOSC contribution and I want to control from ZoomOSC at the studio, is that 11 licenses to pay for?
It depends on if you need the Pro function for that or not. I mean, if it's for the purpose of multi-pinning and you need that in the cloud, then it would be you'd have a couple of choices. You could, if you want to just put 10 up in the cloud, and then if you need to use the chat system to remote control them, that would be 11. But if you VPN up there, or you have your control program also running in the cloud, like Tucker was talking about earlier, then you don't need that additional one. And probably that's better. Like if you're, I'll level and say that like the chat system is cool. It's really helpful and it helps in a lot of particular cases, particularly in the world of entertainment. Broadcasters probably shouldn't be using the chat system for remote control. Use Streamweaver, use a VPN, use something to genuinely get the OSC from one place to another, and don't clog up the chat back channel. You know, and if you're doing it in AWS, you have control of that entire pipeline. So that's when I would go pull out a Streamweaver license and then beam it up and beam it down versus using the chat. Yeah.
Next question.
Leo Mindell in London says, so can you in a meeting say mute all bar co-hosts or move all bar co-hosts to the waiting room at the end of a call?
We don't have the waiting room yet. We do have eject though. That was fun. Mute all. Yeah, that would work. You would be able to mute. You'd be able to get their user roles, and then you would be able to create a custom user group that would call mute on them. Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Leo.
It's on the user groups, I think, is the key point, because when you've got a call that's got 250 people in it, typically we want to have a conversation at the end, but we've already assigned everybody co-hosts, and what we have to do is it's too slow now to eject, because when you eject, you have to, it asks you, do you want to inform Zoom that they've been misbehaving? So we move to the waiting room. It can take us 5 minutes to clear the call down, when really what we want to do is press one button that says anybody that is not a co-host is gone. And the only way we do it at the moment is to move them into the waiting room.
Try eject again with us. Try that out, because I have not had that pop up in the latest build.
Okay,
so
great.
Worth a shot.
But it's definitely the end. It's everybody bar co-host, because we always co-host anybody that's part of the main.
So
main
I don't think there's
sessions.
going to be a command that's going to say like do this on everybody but co-hosts, but there's a command that says get the list of co-hosts, and there's a command that says kick them. So you could match them and do it that way.
Are you able to create new classes of groups? Like I just want to have these, there's co-host and there's host and there's attendees, but I could create a new one that I make up a variable that says the special co-hosts are these 8 people.
Two ways of doing that. You can use the /users option and specify them right there.
Mhm.
Or if you want to save them as a macro, this is the old theater workflow of the performance config file, which is now called the target list. You support multiple target lists, save and load them on the fly. It'll basically preset your macros and your control IDs as you're rolling through, and then you can just have a bunch of those files sitting there with all the presets.
Great. Next question.
James Chalmers of Glasgow is back with the Zoom OSC still support dual monitor mode for separate clean outputs.
It does, yes. And in fact, it's a little cleaner this time. I won't get too far into why, but it's a little bit cleaner.
Cleaner output.
Nice. Next question.
Ed Willick of Valley Cottage, New York says, is there solutions to Zoom OSC 4 Pro or Zoom ISO for true clean outputs on Mac and Windows in reference to the Powered by Zoom overlay? Wow. That's
wink, wink. That was what I was just referencing. So yes.
Next question.
Dave is back with what level of remote control of user devices is possible? Switch cameras, adjust audio levels. What else?
Sure. So you can switch their camera, switch their audio device, their mic device, their speaker device, set their mic device level, set their audio device volume, set their virtual background. And then you can get the active devices in the lists of devices. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it would be unlimited to the point where if they're both running Zoom OSC and you were on you had it set up correctly, you could run their ATEM Mini from where you are, right? I mean, you could just tie the two of them together and just run them. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Just to clarify, can you do more than 2 screens or just 2 screens?
Just 2 screens from Zoom OSC 4, just 2 screens. The same dual monitor mode that the vanilla app has.
Beijing.
Andy, regarding the remote control, can you get a list of all the cameras they have, and the audio devices, individually select them, or does it just use the auto switch that Zoom gives you?
Not the auto switch. It's genuine. You get the list. You can look at the list, and then you can choose it by indexing that list. You can choose it by the device ID or the colloquial device name. All 3 of those are valid ways of telling Zoom OSC which device to choose.
Go ahead, Jesse.
In doing tech checks, I use remote support quite a bit through Zoom. One of the things that Zoom does not do is does not let you see the Zoom interface on the remote end. It'd be nice if there was a way to do that in the future, like to where you could just go into their audio and video settings menu and just do it for themselves, for the other person on the other end. Thanks.
Next question.
Jim Wilkins of Marblehead, Massachusetts says, it sounds like maybe you could build a list of names that automatically get sent to specific breakouts as they join. Is that true?
When Zoom fixes the breakout rooms, yes.
Next question.
Jonas Dattel of Reutlingen, do I need the Pro version to have it getting feedback into the StreamDeck?
Depends on what kind of feedback you're interested in. To support the variables in our integration, yes, you'll need the Pro, because that's the way to get the full frame of data. But if you just want to have like, button states that are, red if their video is off and green if their video is on, like that's stuff that we already give you, and all of the stuff that we have given you in the past is still available. So all of that stuff is still totally good to use.
Sorry, my brain went away again. I was thinking about the fact that if you had the data, the LUFs, I was thinking about when we were talking about remote control, that if you had the LUFs, theoretically, you could just have. I was thinking Mickey could move their volume up and down, but you could just have it target a certain LUF. They just start talking, and the system just evens them out using their volume. You just go through each person and have them talk for a little bit, and they wouldn't have to do anything because it would just go. And then it just tightens everybody up as they just talk for 10 seconds and we'll have your volume.
And, I literally call this the Mickey feature. So I'm going to be furious if you don't build that.
All right. Next question.
Jonas Total is back with, does everyone see the chats to remote control?
It depends on if you want them to. It depends on if the pairing mode is set to all or if it's set to co-hosts or if it's set to specific users. The only time that you should really see it in the everybody chat is if you are on all and the pairing mode is set to everybody. So that's when the ZoomOSC sort of jam sync each other. They just all say hello, and then they all see each other saying hello and pair. That's the only time that it would be in the everybody chat.
Benjamin?
I've seen Ben's do it. Yeah, actually. Benjamin.
Yes. So I joined the meeting this morning from Zoom OSC 4, and you might have seen a Zoom greeting. And that's exactly what it looks like.
Yep. Next question.
Brian Henry from Boulder City says, which version of Mac OS, Mojave, Catalina, or Big Sur does Zoom OSC work best with?
It should work fine with all of them. We've tested them, and we haven't had a better experience with one versus another. Big Sur, I think, still struggles with a couple of other programs in the pipeline, like the EOS webcam utility and a couple of virtual cameras, and we've seen Zoom OSC crash when it's not because we're doing something wrong, it's because those drivers are not compatible. When we try to load it, it fails every application that uses them. So maybe Big Sur is not the one, but Catalina's been rock solid. Mojave has been fine too.
Next question.
Orion Z. Slater of London says, will 4.0 be able to change display settings such as display names, hide or show self-view, hide or show non-video, and so forth?
So non-video and names, yes. Self-view, no. They don't give us an option for that yet. Please petition them for that.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next question.
Simon Daniel Jerk from Fremont, California. In version 3.0 on Windows and Mac, I have not exposed the stereo original audio, high quality audio settings. Has this been added to 4.0?
3.0 was a while back. I don't remember exactly what was in that because it was like July, I think, is when we had that one. 4.0 gives you the option to toggle original sound on and off, and then to do all those remote control things we discussed with the sound devices. But the granular, like I want to set this level of echo cancellation, we don't do that kind of stuff. We just do the original sound and the volume.
Next question.
Ed Rubin of Oakland, California says, how does Zoom OSC work when people enter and leave a Zoom meeting?
Great. So Zoom OSC is always aware of who is currently in the call. If you choose to target them using the target list, it will remember them and it will report them as being offline or online when they're in the meeting. So if you need a notification when a specific person leaves the call to put a panic card up or something like that, you can target them and then you'll get a notification when they leave. And when they rejoin, all of the bindings that were there previously will reapply and it will target them again, just as long as they join with the same username. Remember that the only thing that's persistent between runs of a Zoom call in terms of metadata is the name. It's a different Zoom ID every time. It's a different, joining order. It's a different gallery position. But that username, if that's the same, that's how we know who to grab if that happens. So you can build out targets that way.
Next question.
Michael Fraley in Dallas, Fort Worth wonders if OSC works better with Mac or Windows.
So this is a point of competition between my colleague who works on the Mac with and Windows. So they work differently when it comes to looking at the differences between them. The Mac version, if your goal is like really robust gallery tracking and outputting, Mac is going to do much better for you because we are actually able to participate in the UI process. It's not precompiled. On Windows, the gallery tracking is a little more fragile. Like if somebody raises their hand, it throws it off because they shuffle up to the top left and we can't see that. Where Zoom didn't give us that piece of information. Again, please petition them on that one. I have a whole list. But the if you need to select like if chat all, Zoom's SDK is broken on Mac and you can't chat in the everybody channel from the Mac version, but you can do it in the Windows version. So there's a lot of like, and we flagged this in the API. It literally says next to everyone, like this works better on Windows, or this one is not supported on Mac, or coming soon. Like we went through all of this and laid it out. So depends on, I wouldn't say it's a blanket statement. Just depends on what you're looking for.
Next question.
Stephen M. of Madison, Wisconsin, iOS version with a question mark, and with hearing that all participants have to be running Zoom OSC to have the full benefit of commands. There are lots of participants who only have iPads and tablets as their entry point.
I, with the team I have and the resources I have available to me, cannot support additional platforms at this time. The reason for this is that every single one of those platforms that you just mentioned has a different SDK. I would have to build a brand new application every single time. It's already really hard to do with Mac and Windows. It would be impossible for me to do iPad, iOS, Android. It would get out of hand, and then we would and web too. We would just lose quality, and I don't want to do that. So it's not something I can do at this time.
Next question.
Karen Novak of Boston, Massachusetts. Could you use Zoom OSC to preset meeting settings on panelist machines?
Depends on which settings, but yes. All that stuff with the audio video devices, yes. We expose things too that are global for the meeting, like allow users to unmute themselves and that kind of stuff. That's also exposed. So depends on exactly what you're looking for, but that should be fine. Yeah.
Next question.
Jeff Weissman in Oakland ran into a problem. First time installing Zoom 3.2.1. It keeps crashing on my Macs running Catalina and Mojave. What are the system requirements for Zoom OSC?
Yeah, so if you're having a crash on 3.2.1, it is almost certainly to do with a virtual video device. This is a late breaking bug that they pushed a lot of the webcam, like the EOS webcam and the Epoch cam. Those are just running really, really poorly on Catalina right now. They're crashing all sorts of applications, and unfortunately, we're one of them. So go delete that off your system, unless or roll it back to a previous version, because it's causing crashes on all sorts of production applications, including ours.
And a reminder to everyone that we're not going to get to all the questions. We're making progress, but I don't think it's going to happen. So make sure to vote on the questions that are there. To make sure that you're helping us order what we want to cover before we end the day. Next question.
Peter Moore of Auckland, New Zealand. Does Zoom OSC cause hair loss given the great hairstyles in office hours?
Okay.
Ooh.
There you go. All right. Next question.
Larry, moving to Leo Mindell of London real quick. As I understand, we need paid pro for control, but can we have the basic version for the many remote clients?
Not if you want to set the settings remotely to control them, but if so it just depends on, and maybe Lee, you could help me understand, but the remote clients will need pro in order to pair to set that control, but they still can use free for all of the other things that are not remote control, or they could join with the vanilla client. There's no specific requirement that they have to be Zoom OSC.
Next question.
Jonas Tatal, with the pro version, do I get pictures of the users to display on the StreamDecks?
That's more of a StreamDeck thing than an us thing. That's one of the things I'm going to talk with Joe about on Central Control, because they have the ability to stream video to the buttons, and we might be able to have a nice synergy there. So,
next question.
Ed Rubin of Oakland, California. Is username what they log in as, or what appears on their thumbnail?
It's both right when they join, and then if they change it later, it's following whatever they currently are named.
Yep. Next question.
Leo Mindell of London says, level 101, so basic, what's the super source mean in this context?
taking all of the video sources that are available in Zoom and picking a subset of them to display on a screen.
So in an ATEM, you'd have we kind of pull it from ATEM because it's called different things for different switchers, and so it's just the typical 4-up that you would see or 3-up that you would see in broadcast, that we would call that a super source. But because we use ATEMs, like if you do it, it's a whole bunch of different names. Is probably why. Next question.
Leo Mindell, I'm sorry, of London. No, that's the one I just did. Oh, I didn't hit clear. Good. Doesn't matter. Kira Novak of Boston, Mass. Could you clarify remote control and if both sides need to be running Zoom OSC?
So for just to recap the way that remote control can work, you can have a Zoom OSC Pro on both sides, and they can communicate via the chat system. You can have a Zoom OSC on both sides and through a Streamweaver or a VPN or whatever your control remote of choice is, and use genuine OSC packets to control them as well. But again, if it's not a Pro one, you can't like set its own mic devices like that. So you'll still want Pro on there, but you get the benefit of having the reliable transportation. If you don't need the features that we lock off as remote control, like if you just need to get data or something about their current situation or how they're viewing things, or you want to pin something on their side, that's in the free. And I think this will all become clear when you see the document that describes which commands are specifically Pro and which ones are specifically free. I just didn't want to overwhelm people with a hundreds of line document right at the top, because we have a lot of commands now.
Next question.
Orion Slater is back from London. If someone has their username changed within the meeting, does it think of them as a different participant from that point on?
It gives a little message that says, hey, this person that we knew was this is now this person, and we're still tracking them. So it will follow along. The difference is with targets. If the targets are based on the username and they swap, it'll swap to follow its name based on that. But like if you're dealing with somebody as an object, it'll just log the name change. But if you're dealing with them as a username, and that's how you want to talk to them, then that will swap.
Go, Jeffrey.
Is there a way to mass change names in ZoomOSC?
I don't think we expose a rename option. I have to look into that.
Next question.
Barry Williams of London says, can you disable a remote user's auto volume control?
I don't think we have a specific command for that. However, it might be sort of vacuously satisfied when you try to set their level. I think it might pop it off automatically. So worth testing.
Next question.
David Brady in New York. What are the plans for SSO integration, and how can the Pro license be used in this type of environment?
And for those listening, SSO is single sign-on. It just means that you're into one network and it doesn't make you keep signing on.
Yeah, so SSO is tricky, and I've talked up the chain at Zoom about this one, and I need them to make some changes to support it. Right now, you can log into Zoom OSC with an SSO token generated by your IT administrator, but nobody has time to go get that and sort that out. So we just say we don't support it. It's high on my list, but when we implement SSO, we need to do it right. It needs to be popping you into a browser, logging in with the application that you provide, and popping you back in. All this other stuff that they want us to go through to do that is just not something that the consumer is going to be able to do. So I'm kind of drawing my line in the sand, and they have to make that change.
Next question.
And we've finished all the ones with positive votes. We're in low negative numbers.
Yep, go ahead.
Ryan Jurgen, Columbus, Ohio. Will one Pro license allow multiple instances to operate at the same time?
Licenses are instance-based. So when you purchase multiple licenses, that's how many concurrent activations you can have.
Next question.
Larry Tang of Concord. Can ZoomOSC control individual breakouts? Would love to pin all panelists in each breakout room, speaking to the breakout room audience.
We built the foundations for that, but Zoom's SDK is broken right now regarding breakout rooms. So stay tuned. We'll hope to bring that as soon as they fix it.
Next question.
James in Dublin, Ireland. Is there a trial version of Isadora?
Just so long as you don't want to save, you can use it full featured without saving the program.
So just put it on a computer that you're not going to close anytime soon, and you'll be
throw it up in the
fine.
cloud. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Next question.
Rick Bakos of South Bend, Indiana. What is an SDK? Software development kit, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Next question.
And next, that didn't move. Okay, Barry Williams of London, UK says Zoom release frequent updates. Do you keep up with the updates, or do you lag slightly?
Again, depends on the security level. If it's a security update, we're ahead. If it's a feature update, we are beholden to Zoom releasing that to us. Typically, it's behind. We're asking to, and have recently been sort of receiving these things more up to speed.
Next question.
John Beckering of Moordach, Netherlands. How do you avoid a Teams meeting? Well, that's okay. There's a winky.
Just say no. All right. Next question.
Can you make the screens bigger so that they are readable?
We'll figure that out. We solved that probably after that question was asked. So we made it. Look at that, 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. We made it. I saw those questions and I was like, "There's no way this is going to go on till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon." And but Andy was fast and accurate. So
I don't know
Andy,
if you want to deal with them. We had 2 sandbagged from way early that we didn't get to.
No, we'll leave those go. Sorry, we'll bring those back on another one from James. Those are not related to this, but Andy, I think that was a great opening session.
Volley.
The volley. Yeah. You know, the thing is that I know that there's some people that are probably uncomfortable with the format, which is that we talk a little bit about it and then we just answer a whole bunch of questions. But if you look at how much data we covered of understanding how the thing works, it's a different way of learning. And there's going to be videos that you can watch that are more organized and there's more stuff. But I think that all of us came up with questions that not any one of us would have come up with. So we actually accelerated our learning because from a whole bunch of different directions, you have a whole bunch of people all looking at the thing, and it gives us a better picture than we would have from a standard. If Andy just gave us a 2-hour lecture, it would have been horrible. It would have been hard. I mean, you'd be really good if you're going to do that and spend a lot of money to do that. And if it was just a handful of people asking questions or whatever, there's something about I know that this is an unstructured thing, and we're going to have structure because we're going to have conversations, but the goal is to learn through this conversation and through these questions. And it's I'm going to warn you that it's going to be more of this. We will definitely, because we're going to be going through the stuff. Andy will give us a little bit of something to look at, and then we're going to keep on driving through questions. Now we're going to ask people to be focused on those questions, but the goal is in a month, how much can we learn in this kind of conversational format, which I know is very unique from what people are used to in education. Leo and then Hosmuk.
I think the best thing about it is that I have a completely different use case to you, Alex, for this. And the fact is, I'm listening to your questions, and your use case of it is making me question what I can do in a completely different way than I actually thought of this product. Because we want to use this to run meetings, right? Because that's, unfortunately, we're delivering meetings with 250 plus people, and we have to control and manage it. That's what I'm looking at for. You're using it as a CDN.
Broadcaster. Or a broadcaster, like an edit package, and that's the point. To your point is that we've got a couple hundred people here that are all looking at it for a different reason, and we learn very fast from all of each other what's possible, and and it's very unique to have someone like Andy who can actually answer all those questions. Usually it's us just trying to answer it to each other. The goal though is that when we're done in February, I mean, obviously we'll send Andy lots of cake and wine and other things to keep him coming back. But the point is that we end up with 100 or 200 people within our community that can answer a lot of those questions. And so then what happens is we're able to answer those questions on a day-to-day basis. We keep on getting Andy to come back once a week or once a month or whatever, and continue to fill all of that in. And we all learn faster together. Hosmuk.
Yeah, I think what's very useful, this is not a once-off. There's a continuum of the next few weeks. And the conversation and the question actually incentivizes you to invest time in learning this, because now you understand the possibilities and the potential of the tools of what we're hearing in this session.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Dan.
What week do we get to play that asteroids game?
I will bring the asteroids back. We have asteroids. We have a first-person shooter in a 3D environment that you can pilot with somebody on guns, somebody on walking. There's all sorts of fun things.
What is this? How did I miss this? Did I drop out for a second? When were we talking about asteroids in Zoom?
So at the second hour, so you left. It was in the post show on the after our second hour. Elle came in and we had a game parlor of different things that were powered by the Zoom chat. We give you the contents of chat messages. So if you pair that with the media server, you can have people, we have trivia games now. We have like guess where the ball landed in the cup game. We have all sorts of stuff. It's we'll have to play at some point. It's fun.
Okay. No, absolutely. And again, hopefully, we're going to stay pretty focused on some of this stuff, but to get through those questions, but we'll dig into that. And then in weeks coming, the goal is that by the end of the year, this is you have a couple hundred, 200, 300, 400 people that really understand how this works. And I truly believe that when you have that many people all talking to each other as a community and all learning and all kind of almost starting similar place, we have a lot of great people that came in that were already part of the Zoom OSC community. So that's going to help a lot if they stick around. But I think as a group, we're going to be able to, you'll start to see us experiment with things that are fun. Anyway, so thank you all for coming. I want to thank all the folks from the Zoom OSC community that were also very patient with the setup and us getting into the webinar and everything else. I know that it was a little chaotic last week, and that was my fault. I didn't quite set that up as well as I could have. We're very happy to have you. And again, if we'll keep on putting out on Saturdays the Discord link. I'll build another one right now and put it into Makana after we leave here, so you can get it if you'd like. Just a reminder for folks that are new to our Discord, we're a bit iron-fisted about first name, space, last name, and then we make a request for location and a picture of yourself. You'll find that the conversation within our Discord is pretty civil, and we'd like to keep it that way. So anyway, we think that Andy, we're guessing have already collected an amazing group of people. So I don't have any doubt of that. We're just letting you know that we're probably tighter than most Discord servers. So as far as go ahead,
Alex,
Andy.
on the subject of links, I want to mention again to please fill out the form that I've posted in Mukana. That's going to give me really important feedback, and it will also get you the application. We're all going to use version 4, so please make sure to fill that out.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Saturday, Sunday. Oh, Benjamin, you have one last thing?
Is there a post show today?
There is a post show. All right, we'll jump into the
Great.
post show.
I'll post a link.
Yeah,
we'll see you there.
Yeah.
7th breakfast. All right.
I can do. I got the post show. I got the post show set up. I'll put it up there. All right. We'll be in the post show here in just a second. Thank you, everybody, for watching and joining. And again, what drives this is not just a bunch of panelists. It is everybody asking questions and driving the conversation, and we really appreciate that. So thank you all for being part of that conversation. And it's funny, my post show is showing up as the thing. So we'll I now have to register for my own show to start it. It's kind of an odd problem. When we went so far over the post show, it doesn't know what to do with it in Zoom.
The
All right.
question is, are you going to allow yourself in?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a lot of trouble, so I don't know if I should. All right. We'll see you there in a second.
See you guys.